Hi, this is Old Bull for another reflection that can change your life. Stay with me until the end and find out ... they lied to you. Said all you had to do was be a good man. Work hard, say sorry, and life would sort itself out. But here, you are heart heavy, trust broken, soul worn out, and all those clean little answers ain't helping. You messed up. Maybe you betrayed someone. Maybe you betrayed yourself. Doesn't matter if it was a one-time thing or a pattern you swore you'd break. The truth is, you're standing in the wreckage now. And no one's coming to save you. But what if I told you that this exact moment right here, right after the fall, is where real manhood is born? Not in perfection, not in pretending, but in picking yourself up, facing what you've done, and becoming someone stronger than you've ever been. Because the world doesn't need flawless men. It needs redeemed ones. Men who've bled, crawled, prayed in silence, and still stood up the next morning. This isn't a sermon. This is survival. This is your turning point dot. So the question isn't, did you mess up? It's, what are you gonna do now? Stick around. Because the answer might just be the beginning of the man you were always meant to become. I've been around long enough to know that the hardest words a man can say aren't "I love you." They're "I messed up." You see, there's a weight in those words. They peel off the armor we wear and leave us standing face to face with the truth. I've sat by campfires with strong men who hunted elk in the snow, swung axes through oak like butter, and raised families with their bare hands, yet froze like boys when it came time to admit they were wrong. There's no rifle, no truck, no title on earth that shields a man from accountability. It starts right there, in the quiet, looking in the mirror and saying, "It was me." There's a reason real men, strong men carry scars. Not from the fight alone, but from the courage it takes to say, "I failed." When we mess up, and we all do, the temptation is to justify, to blame, or worse, pretend it didn't happen. But being a man isn't about being flawless. It's about being honest when you fall. That's what separates boys from warriors. You want to rebuild your self-respect? Want your wife to look at you the way she used to? Want your kids to believe in who you are again? Then own it. The silence that follows will feel like a storm at first, but it's the silence where healing begins. I remember my grandfather once told me, the first shovel you grab when you're buried in a mess is the truth. He wasn't wrong. You can't rebuild a cabin on rotten foundation, and you sure as hell can't rebuild your manhood on lies. So if you've made a mess, and if you're still breathing, chances are you have start with your own words. Say them out loud if you need to. Write them in a letter. Pray them in solitude out in the forest, with nothing but pine trees and pipe smoke to witness. It's the first swing of the axe that brings the tree down. But if you keep swinging, something solid always falls. There's something I've learned watching men walk into church on Sunday and then walk right back into their same sins by Monday. Saying, "I'm sorry," is easy. It rolls off the tongue, like smoke off a cigar. But stopping? Now that's the real work. That's where discipline gets forged like iron in firewood heat. A man can apologize 100 times and still be the same man who broke his promise the first time. But when he really stops, that's when change begins. That's when you trade regret for redemption, not just in your words, but in your walk. I knew a fellow once who cheated on his wife more times than I could count. Every time he'd cry, say the right words, buy the flowers. But nothing changed. You see, repentance without change is just manipulation and a cowboy hat. And your soul knows it. The people around you know it. Real masculinity isn't in the apology, it's in the consistency. When a man stops lying, stops drinking, stops disappearing when things get hard, it sends a message louder than any speech. You don't have to shout it from a truck bed. Just walk it out every day with quiet strength and steady hands. Now, I'm not here to beat anyone down. I've had to chain myself to the truth more than once in this life. But brother, if you're serious about becoming a better man, a strong man, a provider, a protector, you've got to quit the behavior that's burning down your life. Not slow it down, not just hide it better. Quit, cold, like snapping the reins and turning your horse away from the cliff. Is it easy? No. But neither is carrying guilt in your chest like a sack of wet gravel every morning. A real man doesn't. Just say sorry. He becomes someone who doesn't need to. Ain't much that separates a man from a boy these days, except how he carries the weight of what he's done. See, the world teaches us to dodge consequences like deer to the brush fast, silent, always looking for a way out. But that ain't how you build strength of character. A real man, a good man, he knows that every action has a shadow. You break it, you fix it. You hurt someone, you face them. You screw up the books at work. You walk into that office and say, that was me. That's not weakness. That's the backbone we talk about around the fire. When the stars are out and the whiskey's still warm. I once knew an older man truck driver, hard worker, wore boots that had seen more miles than most folks' cars. He crashed a rig because he didn't check the brakes. Could have blamed the shop, could have lied, but he didn't. He walked into that company office, looked the boss in the eye, and said, that was on me. Lost the contract, yeah. But he kept his dignity. That's the kind of manhood this world is starving for. Men who don't flinch when the cost of doing the right thing comes knocking. Because if you can't take the hit for what you did, you've got no business calling yourself a man. Sometimes the consequences don't show up in a courtroom or a paycheck. Sometimes they're quieter. Your wife loses trust. Your kids stop listening. Your own reflection looks back at you like a stranger. And those are the consequences you can't buy your way out of. You earn them back, day by day, by showing up, by staying steady, by not running when it gets uncomfortable. So if you're carrying guilt, don't just apologize. Don't just promise. Take the weight. Own the impact. Walk through the storm. You create it, even if your boots get soaked in regret. Because that's what real men do. They endure the consequences. and rise wiser because of them. There's a lie we swallow early, usually sometime between our first heartbreak and our first. Whiskey this idea that a real man handles it all alone, that asking for help is weakness, that needing someone makes you less of a warrior. But let me tell you something straight from the saddle. Even the strongest stallion gets stuck in the mud. And when he does, it don't matter how powerful he is. Legs are he needs a pull. Same with us. There are weights we can't lift, addictions we can't quit, demons we can't wrestle down by ourselves. And the sooner we admit that, the sooner healing shows up. I've seen tough men cowboys, firefighters, grandfathers who've held dying animals and buried their own children break down because they tried to carry pain that wasn't meant to be carried alone. I'm not saying you cry on every shoulder in town, but I am saying you find someone, a pastor, a brother, a counselor. Maybe it's just an old man who's walked through hell and came back with burn marks and wisdom. But don't sit in silence while your soul rots from the inside. That quiet pain you're dragging through the forest, it ain't noble. It's killing you. The wilderness can teach a man a lot, but sometimes it just makes the echoes louder. So if you're tired, broken, worn out from trying and failing, reach out, call someone, write the message. Speak it out loud under the stars if that's all you've got in the moment. Real masculinity isn't about brute force. It's about knowing when to fight and when to ask for a hand. And if your fire's almost out, don't be too proud to borrow. A spark. That's not weakness, that's survival. And survival, my friend, is the first step to legacy. I've heard it 100 times. I said I was sorry, and I believe you. But here's the hard truth. Sorry don't patch fences, fix trust, or clean up blood on the floor. Words are cheap, especially when they come from lips that haven't changed their direction. You want to be a real man? Then your apology better come with calluses, with changed habits, with quiet, consistent proof that you're not just trying to ease your guilt, but truly undo what can be undone. A broken promise isn't mended with flowers or texts. It's mended when you get up before sunrise and show up different day after. Damn day. I remember watching a man come back to his family after years in the bottle. He didn't show up with speeches. He didn't weep and beg. He just started cutting firewood, took the trash out, went to work sober. He didn't try to explain the past. He just started building a new future, one brick at a time. That's what repair looks like. Quiet, steady, real. When you leave scars, you don't get to dictate how fast they heal. But you sure as hell better be the one holding the ointment, not the knife. A good man takes that role seriously, not out of guilt, but out of love. So if you're out there thinking an apology is enough, think again. The forest doesn't forgive the axe just because it whispers regret. It forgives when the axe is put down and the man starts planting trees. You lied? Tell the truth now. You vanished? Start showing up. You broke something sacred? Then stop talking and start repairing. That's how real men walk. That's how trust is earned again. Not with sweet words, but with tired boots and clean hands. And sometimes that work dirty, painful, and long is the only way back to your own soul. You can't just toss a forgive me into the wind and expect it to settle the dust. Real forgiveness ain't something you get because you asked. It's something that gets built, like a barn, one beam at a time. And the first beam is always action. I've sat by enough campfires with men broken by regret to know this. The ones who found peace were the ones who got to work. They didn't beg for mercy, they earned back trust. They showed up when it was hard. They kept showing up. That's the kind of manhood that makes forgiveness possible. Not automatic, but possible. I knew a father who left his family for 3 years. When he came back, his son wouldn't even look at him. Now that man could have cried, could have thrown his hands up and blamed the past, but instead, he built a wooden chair. Every week, one for the boy, one for the mother, one for anyone who'd still let him be around. It took him 6 years to be invited to sit in one. And when he finally did, he didn't say a word. He just looked across the fire and nodded. That was forgiveness earned through nails, sweat, and time. Not speeches.c. Forgiveness is sacred. And sacred things are delicate. You want it? Start by fixing what you broke. You won't always get the same love back, but that's not the point. The point is showing you're no longer the man who caused the hurt. You're something new, something stronger, something forged in solitude, responsibility, and fire. A real man doesn't demand forgiveness. He lays down his pride and builds a path back with humility. Because only when you've made the effort to repair the damage, step by step, can the door to forgiveness even creak open. And that next step, well, it starts inside you. Let me tell you something that don't get said enough out here in the wilderness of regret. You're not the same man you were when you fell. And if you are, it's because you chose to stay there. See? The hardest. Forgiveness ain't the kind you ask from someone else. It's the kind you owe yourself, alone in the dark, when nobody's watching. The kind that creeps in late at night, when the truck's quiet, the pipe smoke curls slow, and all your old failures start to whisper again. And that's where most men get stuck. Not because they can't move forward, but because they keep trying to drag the corpse of their past along with them. I've been that man. Sat in silence, chewing over every mistake like old jerky dry, tough, bitter. Thought maybe I didn't deserve peace. Thought maybe the weight I carried was my penance. But here's what I've learned. Carrying guilt past its season doesn't make you noble. It makes you a prisoner. You've done the work. You stopped the bleeding. You patched the fence. Now bury the old version of you and leave him there, under the cold dirt. The man you are now deserves air, light, and another chance to walk the horse trail without chains on his boots. I ain't saying forget. I'm saying forgive. There's a difference. You remember, so you don't go back. But you forgive, so you can go forward. Because real masculinity, quiet strength, ain't about being perfect. It's about rising again when shame tries to pin you down. It's about dusting off, wiping your brow, and saying, "That was me, but it's not me anymore." So next time you stare into the mirror, don't look for punishment. Look for purpose. Look for the man who's still standing. Because once you see him, clear and steady, you'll finally understand that the road ahead ain't closed. It's just waiting for you to step on it. There's a reason we bury the dead. We're not meant to sleep beside ghosts. Yet too many men walk through life dragging their own past like a casket chained to their boots. They talk about new beginnings while clinging to old wounds. But you can't carve a new trail with one hand still gripping yesterday's map. I've seen it happen around the campfire, that far-off look in a man's eyes, like he's stuck in a memory loop, fighting the same battle long after the war ended. If you're always looking back, you're bound to trip on what's ahead. And the world don't slow down for a man stuck in reverse. I once buried a dog I loved more than some people. Dug that hole. Myself under a pine tree out back. When it was done, I stood there, boots muddy, hands shaking, and I said goodbye. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I had to let go. The same's true with the past. You honor it. You learn from it. But then you leave it in the ground. You don't keep digging it back up just to feel the weight again. That's not strength. That's self-inflicted pain. You don't owe your past a lifetime of misery. You owe your future a man who's finally ready to live . So if your mornings start with guilt and your nights end in regret, it's time. Time to hold the funeral. Burn the letters. Delete the number. Sell the truck if you have to. Whatever your past is, it's not your identity. You're not the mistake you made. You're not the silence you kept. You're not the man you used to be unless you choose to be. So bury it deep. Mark it if you want, but don't pitch a tent there. Because every sunrise that touches your face is a second chance. And second chances don't wait around for the man still sitting at yesterday's grave. One of the hardest truths I've had to swallow, and believe me, it went down like splinters, is that some folks just ain't meant to ride with you the whole trail. You start to grow, start changing your habits, getting your life back in order, and suddenly the same people who used to cheer you on, they get quiet. Or worse, they mock you, try to drag you back into the mud you've been fighting to crawl out of. Sometimes it ain't strangers. Sometimes it's your own blood, a brother, a childhood friend, the woman you thought you'd grow old with. But hear me loud and clear. If they can't stomach your growth, they've already forfeited a seat in your future. I knew a man who quit drinking after 20 years of self-destruction. Started waking up early, splitting firewood, reading his Bible again. But every weekend, his old drinking buddies came calling him soft, calling him fake. You know what he did? He got a new phone, changed the locks, earned the bridge. Not out of hate, but out of survival. You don't owe loyalty to the ones who feed your weakness. Real brotherhood supports your climb, even when it means watching you rise alone. A good man doesn't keep himself small just to make others comfortable. He walks the higher trail, even when it's empty. I ain't saying cut people off at the first disagreement. I'm saying pay attention to who applauds your progress and who smirks behind your back. The ones who laugh when you set boundaries, who tempt you to just one more time, who call your healing boring, that ain't your tribe. That's your anchor. And an anchor has one job: keep you stuck. So if you're climbing out of a pit, don't waste your strength pulling others who are fighting to stay at the bottom. Let him go. Light your own fire. And if someone wants to join you, really join you, they'll follow the smoke to your camp. You ever notice how a broken bone, once healed right, comes back stronger than before? That's how it works with men too. See, we treat failure like it's a grave, but in truth, it's a forge. Messing up doesn't disqualify you from being a strong man. It qualifies you to become one. Real masculinity isn't born in success. It's shaped in fire, quiet pain, doubt, fear, all of it. You take a hit, lose your footing, fall flat on your face. That's not the end, brother. That's the start of something. And the man who can rise from that well, he carries something no smooth-talking pretender ever will. Wisdom earned the hard way. I've made mistakes that still echo in the back of my mind when the wind cuts just right. But I'll tell you this, I'm a better man for them. Not because I failed, but because I didn't let the failure own me. I faced it. I stood over it. I carved something out of the rubble, like a saddle passed down through generations, cracked, weathered, but dependable. I carried the lesson, not the shame. And that's what makes a good man. Not perfection, not popularity, but persistence. The strength to get up when quitting. Sounds easier. The courage to say, that version of me had to die, so this one could live. So if you're sitting there thinking you've screwed up too bad, burned too many bridges, lost too much time, let me stop you right there. You're not done. As long as you've got breath in your lungs and fire in your chest, you've got a shot to rebuild. Start with small steps. Make your bed. Mend a relationship. Put your phone down and read a page of something that feeds your spirit. Doesn't matter where you start. Just start. Because falling isn't failure. Staying down is. And the world don't need more men who never fall. It needs more men who fall, lead, rise again, and keep walking. So now you know. Messing up ain't the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter, if you've got the guts to write it. But I've got to ask you, how much longer are you planning to carry that weight before you lay it down and finally move forward? How many more mornings will you wake up feeling like a man you don't recognize before you decide to become someone better, stronger, wiser, quieter in strength, but louder in integrity? Because listen, nothing changes until you change. Not your marriage, not your reflection, not your future. It's on you now. And you've got everything you need already inside of you. The discipline, the scars, the lessons. You don't need another excuse. You need a decision. Are you ready to fight back? To stand firm, push through, rise again, and stay strong, even when no one's clapping for you? If this hit home, don't just close the tab and move on. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're at. Tell me what part of this story is yours. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because we're not done walking this road together. Not by a long shot.